Today, I want to talk to you about the best currency exchange apps that you can use to get the most money when you exchange currency from one to the other. And obviously, there's so many different ones to choose from. So it can be a little bit overwhelming. And obviously, this video could be super long, covering all of them. But I really want to focus on three main ones that are most commonly used and known, I would say, and that can also be used to spend money, right? Because some of those, apps and accounts, they only use to kind of deposit money, exchange it, and then send it somewhere. And while those, can work well, let's be honest, most of us want to have an app or a bank or whatever service to exchange money and then use it, which are Revolut, Wise, and Trading 212, which might surprise some of you. But yes, they've recently also added a card. So that does make them more attractive to invest your money, exchange your money, earn some interest, as well as spend your money. So I want to kind of give you an idea and compare the three different apps and how they work and what kind of fees and exchange rates you can expect with each of them. And at the end of the video, I'm going to share with you my favorite one that I use mostly, which one I recommend for different use cases, as well some general foreign exchange practices that I recommend you that can really save you some money. Right, so let's start off with comparing the different exchange rates. And actually, it's a little bit tricky because obviously, as soon as I go from one page to the other, the exchange rates also fluctuate, right? So if I now, for example, put the exchange rate of, let's say, 10,000 euros to dollars, that's what you see over here. That's on Wise, right? So I could go now, open up another app and show you what I get there. But of course, if that takes me half a minute or a minute, then of course the exchange rate also changes in that time. So it's not perfect direct comparison, but just to give you an idea of what you could expect, the different apps to give you in terms of rates, because it's not as easy as it should be, right? Where you just see one price that you get, certain fees, the markup. So it's not super transparent. So I just want to share you from my user perspective of what you can expect if you were planning to exchange some money, a larger amount, or even on travels, and how that could work. And you need to understand the concept of the mid-market rate, also known as the interbank rate. That's basically the real actual exchange rate currently without any markups, right? When you go on Google or Yahoo Finance, when you type it in over here, that's the current rate that you'll be getting. There is no markup. That's basically where the buyers and the sellers meet. They agree that's the current rate for that currency pair. And obviously you can change the currency pairs if you want to change it to francs or pounds, whatever it is. So that's the ideal rate you can be getting. Now, obviously we want to get as close as possible to that interbank rate. And obviously it changes, right? The exchange rate is not fixed. It's not one-to-one. It fluctuates over time. That's normal. But obviously we want to avoid that if the exchange rate is right now at this price, that we pay premium, right? We don't want to pay more than what is the actual exchange rate. So that's the kind of fundamental behind that. So in this example, I want to exchange euros to dollars. And again, you can play around with this later on yourself. And starting off with Wise, you don't even have to download the app or register anything. You can just try it out yourself. They have it on their website. So if I put the amount over here and I want to make it even larger just to show you the difference, right? Because if you exchange €1, even 1% deviation, it doesn't really show a big difference, right? But the larger the amounts get, the bigger the difference will get. So for this example, I'm just going to put 20,000. I understand that might not be a real use case for some of you, but others might actually exchange quite a large amount. If you earn money in one currency and maybe you want to buy a house somewhere else or you're planning a big trip, then yes, maybe you do want to exchange a larger amount. And it visualizes the point I'm trying to make over here. So right now on Wise, if you were to exchange 20,000 euros, you'd be getting 22,219. If I head over to Google and once again put it over here, it's exactly the same. So there is no markup, which is really, really nice. However, that's actually only showing me the real market rate. If I now go into the Wise actual currency converter, while they do give you the best exchange rate, they do charge you a fee, which is fair enough, right? It's transparent, but you can see those 20,000 euros will now only gonna get you 22,123. It shows you the variable fee is 91 euros and 50 cents. So that's why the difference is from 22,123 to the 22,219 over here. So that's basically includes the fee. As a percentage is not that much, but obviously as an amount, yeah, that is something to keep in mind because it is a larger amount. Now, jumping over to Revolut, they also have a currency converter on their website where you can run the numbers. So now 20,000 euros will give me $22,197 on Revolut, while the interbank rate right now is actually more at 2,224. So it would give me more and I would get more on Wise as well if I purely look at the exchange rate that I'm getting. And that's because Revolut no longer gives you interbank or mid-market rate. They actually give you Revolut's own exchange rate, which obviously has a slight markup factored in, which is a bit unfortunate, right? But at the same time, the deviation is not too bad. As you can see over here, it's still much more than, as I showed you before, I would be getting on Wise when you look at that. However, that includes already the fee over here. On Revolut, it's a little bit tricky because at first I also thought, that's pretty good, but actually those additional fees will be on top. So they will come out of it. So basically you only be left with $22,000, right? Because you're going to be paying 188 euros on top versus on Wise, you would only pay half of that at 91 euros. So that's a big thing to keep in mind actually. However, if I go over to my Revolut app, I can show you if I was to exchange the same, I would actually get more money. So let me show you how it works. I'll put 20,000 euros over here. Right now, I don't have 20,000 euros sitting over here, but theoretically, it shows me the number I'll be getting, which is 22,200, which is pretty much exactly the same that they're showing me over here. However, the difference is, you see, there is no fees, while on the website, we do have fees. And that's because those fees depend on which plan you're on. As you can see, I'm actually on the highest plan, the Ultra plan, and here I have unlimited exchange without any additional fees. And you can see that very clearly on the Revolut website, depending on which country you're in. Right now, we are on the UK, but it's the same principle basically, where you see over here the currency exchange without additional fees, Monday to Friday. That's £1,000. For most European countries, it's 1,000 euros per month, where you don't have any exchange fees. So you'll get the Revolut specific FX rate, but on top of it, if you were to exchange more than 1,000, you would have that additional FX fee. And just to show you, if I lower the amount to 500 euros, now you see there is no additional fee because it's below the threshold of 1,000 euros or 1,000 pounds. So anything over, let's say at 1,500, you will start seeing the fee, which will be charged on top of it. So it's a little bit deceiving because first I thought it's included because that's what you're getting, but they will charge that on top. If the amounts get larger and you're on one of the free plans or even the plus plan, it's up to 3,000 pounds, anything on top of it. And it will be charged with a 1% fee on plus, 0.5%. And on any of the higher paid plans like Premium, Metal or Ultra, there's no additional fee. Plus on top, Revolut always used to have a weekend surcharge in place. So if you were to use even on the high plans, your card and spending on the weekend, you would be hit with an additional markup. I think it was 1% for all the different plans. Now they changed, which is great. But if you're on the standard plan or the plus plan, you're still going to have an additional fee no matter what, even if you're below the 1,000 euros or pounds threshold. So you have to be very mindful of that. So if you do travel a lot or exchange quite a bit of currency, then you really should be considering one of the higher plans. And I always recommend you really start enjoying Revolut, go for either Premium, Metal or Ultra, because especially in terms of currency exchange, you're really going to be saving a lot of money. Even if you were to exchange, let's say 5,000 euros, right? Which might be, quite a reasonable amount for some of you watching to exchange. You'll be paying 38 euros. That almost pays for the entire Ultra plan, right? At least Metal. So it really makes sense if you travel a lot, exchange a lot, to go for one of the higher plans, because otherwise it's really going to hit you with those fees. And as you saw in my example, it really saves me a lot of money because I do transact quite a lot in different currencies. And if I had to pay every time that fee, an additional markup, really I wouldn't be using Revolut at all anymore because I would just make it too expensive. In this case, I'd rather go with Wise. As you saw, even on the free plan, the fees are definitely more attractive on Wise. Plus the exchange rate is also slightly better. So for most of you who are on the free plan, I think in that way, you might be better off going with Wise. And in the past, I would have left it at that between Wise and Revolut. However, we have a new player that entered the chat, which is Trading 212. In the past, I thought it was only a stockbroker, but they've really been expanding quite a lot, where they now pay interest on your uninvested cash. You can obviously do your investments, but they now also have the Trading 212 card. Unfortunately for me, who's based in the UAE, right now, the Trading 212 card is not available here, but in many parts of Europe and the UK, it is, and it's really, really cool. As you can see over here, they really charge you no markup. You get the best true interbank rate. So the exchange rate is really the current one that you see on Google, Yahoo Finance. Really amazing. You even get 1% cashback on your spending. And best of all, there's no monthly subscription to it, which is really cool. Unlike Revolut, here there's only one plan, which is free, which is really awesome. You can hold 13 different currencies. Plus, you get interest on your cash while it sits there waiting to be spent. And if you do want to check it out for yourself, then definitely use my link down in the description below, because if you use it, you'll even get a free fractional share valued up to £100 or euros. I can really recommend overall the app to invest with, but now also with their card. And you'll see in a second the amazing exchange rates, because here we can also see the actual exchange rate you would be getting. Right now, if we were to exchange the same 20,000 euros into dollars, I'd be getting 22,219. If I compare it to the exchange rate I see over here on Google, $4 less. But if I go over to Wise, you can see here those 20,000 euros would only give you the 22,119, right? Because you have those fees on top of it with Trading 212. So while you do get the true interbank rate, they do charge you a tiny 0.15% FX fee, very transparently. And that's actually different to what you see on Google, because they factor in that 0.15 deviation. So that's the small deviation, but that's $3-4 worth of deviation, which I'd be more than happy on a 20,000 euros transaction to pay, right? When you think about it. And even here on their website, they're kind of comparing it, obviously, obviously to the various plans. You can see that's on the Ultra plan, right? Based on the exchange rate alone, you would be better off with trading 212 compared to some of the other ones. But yeah, if you compare it even to the Revolut standard one, it would be significantly less. With $264, you'd be getting less on Revolut standard. So I like how they compare it. Actually, exactly what I need. As you can see over here, they're comparing it also to Revolut and Wise, which are the most commonly used apps to exchange your money. And definitely in that way, I think trading 212 definitely takes the crown. The fee is really reasonable, and honestly, kudos to them. And you don't even have to pay a monthly fee for it. So definitely can recommend you to check it out. I think it really pays for itself, especially if you travel a lot. It makes sense to go with trading 212. So yeah, honestly, I must say I was quite surprised because for the longest of time, I've been a Revolut user and lover, and I still use the app and still travel with it. I was very happy that they removed the weekend charges on the higher paid plans. But even then, that they moved away from the Interbank rate to the Revolut specific rate, which is kind of, opaque. You don't really know what you're getting. So you really have to run the numbers to see how much you get versus some other apps. So it's not really very user friendly. I want to have Interbank rate and then see rather a transparent markup that they charge me, because I understand, right? They still have to make money. It's not a charity foundation, so they have to make money. I get it. If it's 0.15%, as in the case with trading 212, you can see how much more money you'd be getting. And for me, that really works. So honestly, I got to give it to trading 212. If you're looking to exchange money on the fly or to invest or whatever it is, right? I think right now that's probably your best option. Do keep in mind that trading 212 currently only has 13 currencies in place that they're offering, right? You can see those over here. So if you need a currency that's not offered over here, chances are you will find them on Wise or Revolut. You can see on Revolut over here, over 30 currencies that you can even add as an account to your Revolut account. You can see all those various ones over here. So if I had access to the Trading 212 card, I would definitely be using that much more when I travel, because yes, you do get better exchange rate. Plus, of course, even the 1% cashback, which is quite attractive, right? Which you don't have on some of the Revolut paid plans even. And here it's free. However, as I said, I don't have access to it right now, but I do use Revolut. And for the time being, I don't have weekend extra charges and no additional charges on top of the currency exchange fee, which is slightly less favorable. But still, given that I use it with my Revolut Pro card, when I do spend, I do get 1% cashback on most transactions. It makes sense for me to continue using Revolut right now until I do have access to Trading 212 card, and then I might consider using that more and more, especially for international transactions. Now, a couple of general tips and tricks for you to keep in mind when you do travel or want to transact in a different currency. First of all, when you are in a different country and they offer you a checkout to pay in local currency or your home native currency, always pay in the local currency of the country you are in. Otherwise, what will happen is that the bank that the merchant or service provider is working with, they will charge you the exchange rate, which in most cases, I can guarantee you is going to be worse than any of the three I've shown you today, because most traditional banks, my home bank included, is way worse in terms of exchange rates than any of the ones we looked at today. So always pay in local currency of the country you're visiting, and then it will go through your app that you're paying with, either with Revolut, Trading 212 card, or of course Wise, whichever, as they also have a card, and then you get the favorable exchange rate. And no, you don't have to exchange your currency before. So even if you only have, let's say, euros in your account and you go to, let's say, America and you have to pay in dollars, even if you don't have dollars in your account, Revolut or Trading 212 or Wise will exchange it at the current exchange rate at that very moment. Which brings me actually to the next tip that I want to share with you, and that is locking in favorable exchange rate, right? If you do know you have a trip anywhere where you're going to be using a different currency and you know you're going to have quite a bit of expenses, it might be worth it to track the exchange rate a little bit beforehand, right? And we've seen, for example, in the last few weeks, the euro really appreciated versus the dollar. So at this stage, you could have converted your euros to dollars already to lock in that favorable exchange rate, right? You would have gotten more dollars for your euros. While now you can see in recent times it came down a little bit more. If it continues to drop and then you go to the US, you're technically going to need more euros to pay with to get the equivalent dollars. While if you would have exchanged it previously when it was at a higher rate, you got more dollars for your euros, well, then you would be better off. And the cool thing is Revolut, if it sees you have dollars, let's say American dollars in your account and you have to transact in dollars, it will use those dollars. It won't exchange your euros anymore in that moment. So you'll definitely be better off and you can really save quite a bit of money by doing that. But of course, it's a bit like market speculation. Ultimately, nobody knows the future. So I personally hardly ever do that. But if you do follow exchange rates over time, it can really pay off to lock in a good rate early to have that money ready, available when you want to spend it. And of course, do keep in mind that if you converted your currency, for example, from euros to dollars, you would also get a higher exchange rate over there, right? Instead of 2.33% right now that I get on Revolut, you'll be getting 4.34% on your dollars. Same on Trading 212, where you can earn, even on the free plan, because they don't have any paid plans, 4.1% or 2.4% on your euros. So definitely quite attractive. And last tip, please don't go to these exchange offices or bureaus when you arrive at the airport in your country to exchange your cash to that local currency. try to stay away from it as much as possible. Now, I understand some exotic countries that are very cash heavy. You might have to do that to have some cash, right? Because a lot of transactions are still paid in cash. But otherwise, wherever possible, just use your Revolut card, either in a physical form or digital. I like to have it on my phone, just double pay with Apple Pay or Google Pay and pay my transactions. That way you also don't have to fiddle around with all the spare money that you have at the end of the trip. We all been there, right? We end up with some money that you didn't spend. You bring it back home. You'll never exchange it. It just sits there, do nothing for you. Plus, of course, you can't really track it as well. So if you use your Revolut app or Train212 app, you have all the analytics of your trip, see how much you spent on what. So I really like that. Plus, of course, also purchase protection. So a lot of benefits to paying with your actual card than with cash. Plus, in those exchange rate bureaus, trust me, they will always rip you off. You won't be able to compare the different rates that you're getting. You're definitely going to pay top dollars, get a way worse rate than any of the three providers that I showed you today. So if you really needed cash, then better take your Revolut card, Wise card, Train212 card, go to an ATM and withdraw the funds over there. And as a little side note, I remember when I was like 18 or something, we went to Czech Republic and they exchanged us currency, but they gave us a currency of a different country and we had no idea about the currency over there. So we got completely screwed over. So when we tried to rent our skis afterwards with that local currency, they said, "Are you joking me? This is not our currency." So yeah, that's how I got scammed basically. And that's how I learned my lesson to stay away from cash. I prefer using my card wherever possible. Hope you found this video useful and hopefully will save you some money when you travel next time or when you do try to exchange some currency to pay for something internationally or just invest in a different currency as I do myself as well. And if you do enjoy this kind of video and want to talk more about these things, then definitely also check out the Smart Money Club, which is my free online community where we hang out with like-minded people and talk about all things money, personal finance, and investing. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, helps out a lot. Next up, check this video over here. As always, stay healthy, get wealthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.